Welcome everyone. I'm going to talk about Matomo. So Matomo is a free analytics tool, and I'm just going to present you the use case that I had for one of my clients and why we explored that solution. Just a bit about me. So I'm head of analytics in Marketing We Trust. Every day I'm living here, somewhere lost in the mountains in Vietnam. I made my way here to present to you at MeasureCamp. And when I don't do motorbike trips, I actually work on GFO and Matomo. So just a bit of, we put that map together. This is the data map, all the tools that you can have. And today we had a few people at the Marketing We Trust talking about the different sections. So I am more around the data collection. So I'm more on that side. But we had like Selena and Tom talking about the activation of data, and James more about like how data work on the data warehouses and things. Today we're going to talk about Matomo. So the starting point was universal analytics is dying and we will lose all the data. And that was the first thing that raised some questions from my clients. And they were like, why would I lose all my data? And I was like, well, why would you say that? If you don't give me a right use case on how you're going to use the data later, I wouldn't even bother. I would just like set up GFO. You can activate your data there. Why would you look at data from 5 years ago? But a bit of history first is the analytics has been here for ages, right? And you had universal analytics and you had all those regulations coming in place. Cookies are dying. You need to ask for consent to collect data about the users and things. So they came out with the new solution, which is GA4. There is still a mixed feeling about the platform itself, but because of that, you are losing the data, right? So what was our challenge? The thing with my clients is that they are a travel agency. They have 3 different brands and they are across like multiple regions. And one of the things that happened in the last few years, if you don't remember, COVID. So there were sort of how can I know now how well I'm performing if I'm not comparing with pre-COVID? Because during 2021, 22, we just like reduced so much of the cost that it doesn't make any sense for me to compare this year with previous year. They want to compare this year with 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when they had the same sort of marketing budget. So one of the things we wanted to have, this is me being very creative, as you can see, I do very nice bar charts. They basically wanted all data with the new data, and they wanted to be able to crunch data, explore it, and just see today with 2018, for instance. So what we wanted to do, the main 2 objectives, one was saving the data. So Universal Analytics, when they're going to sunset in July next year, you still have a few months to access it. You will lose completely access to it. So we wanted to take the data out and put it in their data warehouse. So they already have a data warehouse. I didn't pick Asia. That's them. With IT, they had already their CRM information, customer information over there. So the idea was really, put it in the right place. Let's say, if you put it in a database and then nobody can access it, and every time you need to call someone from IT, can you get me that data out so I can build my visualization? I say, you need to be able to visualize it easily, right? So one of the things we've done is we started exploring what we could do, right? So Google had a few solutions. Proposing this is the actual whole page of Google proposing, if you want to save the data, just export it manually, like go in the interface, export one by one. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, but no thank you, right? They had, if you were paying for the 360 license, you could have that automatically put in BigQuery. My clients are not 360, so they didn't have the data warehouse already working. So we started to look at like the API, all of the tools, and we narrowed it down to 3 different solutions. So we're going to start at the bottom, right? The obvious one is to use the actual API. So, I put here even, you have the extension in Google Sheets where you can just put your setup. So, that's one of the solutions. within Shade, we put in the data warehouse where here I put query, but it could be anywhere. The other thing is that then we need some visualization. So we put Looker Studio, where it could be any BI tool, right? Second one is supermetrics, because I'm a big fan of supermetrics. I'm using it a lot because you can crunch the data and just extract the way you want. So I said, well, we could take supermetrics. They have the connector directly with BigQuery. We just build everything we want. We put it in there, but same problem. We still have to create the visualization. And then I was like, well, Matomo, because I have a few friends in Europe. So it's come from Buick Pro, I don't know if you know it. So it's open source, right? So I was like, well, let's use that tool and make the best of some of the existing features that they have, including exporting UA data. So I was like, I'm lazy. I'm an engineer, so I'm lazy. I was like, let's use a solution that is actually doing it rather than me defining the client every single query, a single data point that I need to export. So that's why we went with the Matomo approach. Yeah, one of the things that we could have done that in reachable platforms, but the Matomo saying the easiest one to start with. So this is just a comparison. I'm not going to go through all the details of it, but it's sort of the where we started and very early, comparing things and just saying, okay, if we were to do with Matomo, if we were to do with supermetrics, if we were to do with the sheet and BigQuery, what would be the pro, the cons, how much it's going to cost. This is like very raw estimate. We had to re-estimate and things, but usually the most of the cost was actually the storage because of the volume of data that we're dealing with. Storage was one of the points, and then the extraction of the data was the second most pain point. So we had pro and cons, we discussed with the client, and they said, okay, let's try Matomo. So the choice on why Matomo. So Matomo, I was saying, is coming from Buick. You have also, now you have Matomo, you have Buick Pro. It's open source, so you can basically different people build different solutions. It's open source. So this is why actually I went with. So you have a paid version where you pay every month to store the data and all Matomo instances and everything. But I was thinking that we could do that for 52 websites. I would just want to host it myself, handle it, store the data where I want. So it's basic analytics tool. You have a lot of reports built in there. When they started in 2018, we're just positioning themselves into we are the competitor of UA, we're better than UA, come to us, sort of. So I mean, like, for a user perspective, for my client, would have actually maybe been easier for them to use Matomo even over GFO. So I said, like, let's give it a try, have a look, and we see that from there. So I'm just putting some of the visualization. I can't open it, but so just you have a feel of it. Yeah, so you have like all the acquisition reports. It's similar. It's same, but different. Right? You have a lot of visualization that are being built. And for me, that was the main point for my client was even if they could have done it better on maybe user-friendly interface and everything, it's very easy to just go from one place to the other and explore the data, right? It's just like click there, you have the trend lines, you have the bar charts, you can export the data. So the accessibility of the data was for me the most interesting advantage of that tool. So how did we implement it? So I'm just going to go through step by step how we worked. It's going to get a bit technical, but just to give you an idea of what I learned and what we've done. So just to come back one step, the two objectives you wanted. First one is really just to store the data in the client's data warehouse. In that case was Azure, but could work with other solutions. And the other one is having the old data along with the new data in charts in a new way. So what I've done is I put together the analytics team. So while I always need a project manager to make sure that I respect the deadlines and the budgets and things. So Vanessa was helping me. As the head of analytics, I was responsible for the exploration, the proof of concept, all the documentation. And then Francis, who's part of my team, helped me implementing especially Matomo. So you implement tags as you would implement tags for any other tool. And then our time was more around everything in GCP. to help me automate the implementation of Matomo. Because once you've done it once, you don't want to do it 52 times. So it's like just put together a script that's gonna roll out the whole thing. Because once again, I'm an engineer, I'm lazy. So this is all the tools that we used. So you have Google Analytics, basically the data coming from. But a good and important point to make too is we created GA4 based on the universal analytics. So it's all measurements and things, data collection, we are very similar. And then we created the equivalence for Matomo. So the consistency in terms of measurement comes from the fact that we put an extra effort to have that form submission in UI is called a form submission in GA4, and this is going to be called the form submission in Matomo, because otherwise client will be lost and they will not be able to compare apples to apples. Matomo, which is just the mean of it, the interface. GCP is where we installed Matomo, where it's hosted. GTM is where we implement all the tags, and Azure is the platform from the client where they want like their data warehouse to be there. So when you take another, so this is the same thing, but more interactive, right? So you have basically two data streams. You will have one, which will be the historical data coming from Universal Analytics. And you will have the other one, every time someone goes on the website, basically you're going to start tracking data, sending it to Matomo. So the unification of data comes from the fact that we have two streams and that we align in terms of measurements across the two streams. This is, I'm not going to go too much in detail, but basically you need to create the virtual machine, assign the same domain name. So that's what the client has done. They created their flexible MySQL servers on Azure, and then we deployed the Matomo in the cloud. So once we had Matomo installed, we had to create all the tagging for it, right? Every time a user click on that, or every time the purchase, we need to send not only the information to GA4. At that time, we still had UA. We still had the UA tagging now instead. But we had to replicate basically Matomo. Or once again, why it's consistent and why in Matomo we can see the trend lines with all data and new data is because we worked in that continuity in tagging and naming convention. So when we go from the old platform to GA4 to Matomo, you have the same name, more or less, because UA is a bit different. We could use space. So once we push that live, basically you had the two streams, right? We have the Matomo plugin that helps us importing data day by day. So on the right, we were like importing the data, and then with the new activity happening on the site, we were collecting data. And then the magic happened just because all the dashboards were built on both data sets. One of the limitations we had, and I'm seeing that especially like if, because we have a strict deadline with UA, because July 2024, you're going to lose the access. One of the things where we struggle and take time is the API quotas. Well, Matomo is limited by that, but any exportation using the API from Google will be limited to that. So you have 10,000 requests a day per property, and then you have 50,000 per project. And because of those limitations, we actually had to rethink the whole architecture of Matomo to make sure that we optimize that export speed. So it took us between 12 to 16 weeks to export 3-4 years of data. In some tests, it looks like it's not necessarily linked to the amount of data. So it's not linear. There is obviously some scale, but like very small website didn't go as fast as I thought they would. And the one with a lot of data went actually faster. So I don't know exactly on the quotas and how much one credit is, but basically every single day I was reaching the limits on my project, but also at the property level. So the overall architecture, just another visualization of it, right? You have the virtual machine with Matomo running on it. You assign the IP, so then people can, with the DNS, access to matomomybrandname.com, basically. Then they go in there, see the different websites. The good thing with that, and that's why you use Matomo, is the fact that they actually now own the data. So compared to GA4, where you have somewhere in one of the Google server. Here you actually know where you put the data. So I think it was one of the good things with Matomo. So the end result is, so the reason we have 9 instances of Matomo, once again, it's linked to the limitation of the API. This is basically my 9 projects. So what I've done is I split all the 52 websites across that to make sure that we optimize the speed of the export of data. But ultimately, right now, we're done with the export. We could host it in only one instance. Doesn't matter. We'll still have, the reason for the servers is sort of the same because we had different regions. So what I've done is that people in US had the server in US, the one in Australia had in Australia. And I just try to actually put the data in the right place. So in terms of regulations, you limit the risk of having a data breach because you put the European data in Australia. So this is just another way of seeing it. The number of brands or websites that we have by Matomo instances, the way we've done is really just based on the data, right? So I have my 52 sites. I looked at how much hits they had a year, 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, 20 million. Then I spread across that. So basically you have the big brands where you have only 4 or 5. And then the 9, 10, things like this were like smaller websites. So I knew that it would go faster anyway. So it took like a month something for the small ones and about 2-3 months for the big ones. So we solved 2 problems. One was saving data. The other one was to visualize. But I was saying GA4 is your main source of truth, right? Keep your current reporting in GA4 because you always been reporting on GA4. Keep using GA4 because that's how you create your audiences for your paid activity. Matomo is a plus, right? But now start exploring things. Because one of the things that I liked about Matomo, and we are starting that with the client, is the fact, well, it's paid. It's about $200 per feature per year, so it's not that expensive. But the 3 main ones that I like are A/B testing. So you can have some interface, some reports on A/B testing that you are running and seeing which variation is the winner. The other one is the heat map or social recording. So you don't have actually to go to another tool, you have everything in one place. So once again, we have GA4 on one end that is covering some of the basic use case in terms of advertising and things. And on the other end, you have this where you have your quantitative data with quantitative data in only one place. Now, my client, for instance, when they started doing and going there, they were like, man, don't like it. So what we are doing right now is actually, we're going to start building some of the bit nicer dashboard data in Power BI or thing. But ultimately, if they want to crunch the data or explore it, they can go directly in Matomo and they still have access to it. It's not the most friendliest one, but GA4 is not either. So yeah, that's the conclusion. So we had 2 things we wanted to solve. One was saving the data, but in their own server. And I think that's one important thing. And even on other clients, I would think of using Matomo just to do that. There are other products, and that Solar is also doing it. But we went with Matomo because of the visualization and the knowledge that the team already had, because we are working on some European clients that are actually using it. So yeah, so that's the output of it. So at the moment we have all of that. Next step would be trying to figure out on how we can optimize and minimize the cost. In terms of cost at the moment, storage is going to be one of the, storage is peanuts compared to access of data. So we need to figure out on how much people are accessing the data. But at the moment, since we are storing the data in Azure, I don't pay. They pay. Not all that. But still, you still need to monitor every time you own and create your own data warehouse. The one thing is to limit the cost and make sure that you don't pay for things you shouldn't. So there is a lot of material that is available. There is where I found the limitation was all around once you get the data in, how you could combine different Matomo instances. They don't have much information about the schema, I found. But still, big community over there. There are still things they can improve, but ultimately, there is already a lot that you can learn just by yourself and make that.